In this tutorial, we're going to be importing the vectors that were created in a DXF file for a Loco wheel, and then we're going to be toolpathing those to create what you can see on screen. This again will involve using the preview toolpath form to make sure that we're cutting out exactly how we want it to. And we also discussed the use of different tools to then maybe save on maybe a tool change, and also combining the toolpaths into one that can be then run in sequential order to ensure that we don't cut out the part before it's finished. So let's start by opening a copy of the software. And for this tutorial, we're going to be importing a DXF file which contains our Loco wheel. So I'm just going to go to open an existing file. I'm going to locate the project folder and find the locowheel.dxf. Just highlight that and then press the open button. That'll then bring you straight to the job setup. So for this, I'm just going to change our job size to match the size of the material that I'm going to be using. So it's 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So just specify those in the width and height. We're going to keep the Z0 off the top of the block, and we're going to change this material thickness here to 0.275. I want to have our XY datum position to be in the center. I'm just going to change that, and then I'm going to take off this offset also, so then that joins in X0, Y0 in the center of the part there. We're going to keep this in inches. I'm just going to press OK, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to highlight all the vectors, and we're just going to center those to the center of our work area. So there's many ways we can do this. We can either press Ctrl and A on the keyboard to select all, or we can just drag a box around these. And we can then center these by using the Align Selected Objects tool and pressing this button here, which would align to all sides. We can also use the shortcut F9 on the keyboard. So once we've done that, we can click Close on this form. I'm just going to click in the white space to deselect our vectors. So as we're not doing any design in this, and we're not going to alter the design in any way, I'm going to go straight over to the Toolpaths tab. So we can just click this there, or another shortcut is F12. So the first toolpath that I'm going to do is an inner profile, and it's going to be the third circle in. So if we just count that in, so we've got 1, 2, 3. So it'll be this vector here. So if we just select that to highlight it, and we can tell when we've highlighted it as it'll be dashed and pinky purple colour. So with that highlighted, we can now go over to the toolpath operations, and I'm going to select to profile. So I'm going to select this icon here, and for this I only want to profile in a small amount. So I'm going to do it from the top of the material. So this start depth is going to be 0, 0, and the cut depth is just going to go down slightly to 0.04 inches. So for this toolpath and the rest of the toolpaths that we're going to be doing, we don't actually need to display the advanced toolpath options. So I'm just going to untick that. And the next thing that we can do, we can just select our tool. So I'm going to go into the tool database, and from the Imperial tool selection, I'm going to select a 1/4 inch end mill. I'm going to select the defaults, so whatever you set it as you can keep as, and just press OK. And what we're going to do is we're going to edit the tool parameters specifically for these toolpaths. So I'm happy with the pass depth and the step over. I'm just going to change the speeds and feeds for this tool, as I'm going to imagine that we're cutting this on free machining aluminum. So the spindle speed for that is going to be 2400 RPM, and I'm going to set a feed rate of 10 inches per minute and a plunge rate of 3 inches a minute. So I'm just going to press OK to accept those changes. We're going to be machining the vectors on the inside, so I'm just going to profile on the inside for this, so just select that option there. And we're going to use a ramp move. So what that does is that ramps down that distance, whatever we specify in here, before it makes the full cut depth. So I'm going to set this distance to be 1/2 inch, and we can just give this a name. So I'm just going to call this inner profile. and then we can click calculate. This will send us straight to the preview toolpath form. Now while we're here, we can set up our material, so we can set this from the drop down box here to a steel, so just to give that metal finish. So I'm just going to choose steel bright, and then for the machined area colour, if we choose a global fill colour, that will then change the colour for any toolpath that's cut down below the surface of the material to a certain colour. So I'm just going to choose this as a dark grey, and then what we can do now is we can simply just preview the toolpath. So I'm happy in the knowledge that seeing the preview, that's exactly what I wanted that to do. So I can now move on to the next toolpaths. So we're going to go back to the 2D view, so we simply just come up to the top here and select this tab here. We can also use shortcuts on the keyboard, so simply by pressing F3 we'll go to the 3D view, and F2 will switch to the 2D view. So let's deselect the currently selected vector. So to do that, just simply click into the white space. And the next toolpath we're going to concentrate on is at the inner pocket. So if we just select the next vector in, so it'd be the fourth vector from the outside, which would be this one here, and we're going to pocket between this vector and this one here. So simply hold shift and select the second vector, and then we can close this preview toolpath form and we can go straight to the toolpath option for the pocket. So just select that option there. We're going to be pocketing from the top of the material, so that start depth is going to be 0, 0, and we're going to cut down to a depth of 0.08. Again, we want to make sure that the Show Advanced Toolpath options is off, as we're not going to be needing those for these. So we can move on to selecting our tool. So at the moment we're using a metric tool. So if we go into the tool database, we can use an imperial 1/4 inch end mill. So just select that. Again, just select the defaults and press OK. What we're going to do again is we're going to edit the feeds and speeds for this. So just click the edit button and just specify the parameters that we did before. Now the reason why it hasn't come through on this toolpath is because we've not yet edited the parameters for this particular tool on a previous pocket toolpath. As you'll notice when we come to do other toolpaths that we're going to be using the same tool for, that it will actually pick up the edited parameters. So again, I know that the pass depth and the step over is fine. We just want to edit these options down here. So I'm just going to change the spindle speed to 2400, and the feed rate is going to be 10, and the plunge rate is going to be 3 inches a minute. Once we've got this, just simply press OK. I have the choice of two options when considering the pocketing strategy that I want to use. So I can either select to offset between these, or we can raster at a particular angle between the two vectors. For this, I'm just going to keep this as the default offset, and I'm then going to move down the options and I'm going to select to ramp. So I'm going to select this ramp to be again 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to give this a name. I'm just going to call this inner pocket, and I'm going to calculate that. So as you can see, we've now been put into the preview toolpath form, and it's overlaid the toolpath that is just created for us, so we can see that. And again, what we can do is we can simply just preview that just to make sure that that's exactly what we wanted that to do. So if we just do that, and I can see that that has turned out exactly how I wanted. So if we go back to the 2D view, so I'm just going to click F2 on the keyboard, and we can deselect these currently selected vectors by clicking into the white space. And for the next toolpath, I'm going to be doing a profile around the rim. So for this, we just select the second vector in, which is this one here. So just select that, close the preview toolpath form, and then come up to the profile toolpath option here. For this toolpath, we're going to be starting from the top of the material, so just make sure that we've got 0, 0 in there. And we're going to be going to a depth of 0.16. Again, just make sure that the Show Advanced Toolpath Options is deselected. And what we should be able to do now is, rather than go into the tool database to select our tool, as we've already used the tool that we've edited for a 2D profile toolpath, we should literally just be able to select the edit button and find that all our edited parameters are still here. So just double check that and then press OK. And we want to machine the vectors on the outside of this vector, so just make sure that we change that to the outside. And again, we want to make sure that we are going to be plunging at a ramped zigzag into the material at a 1/2 inch. And then just come down and give this a name. So I'm just going to call this Profile Rim. And once we've done that, we can click Calculate, and we can then preview that toolpath to make sure that that's exactly how we wanted it to come out. So let's press Calculate. This will bring you straight to the Preview Toolpath form, and just preview the selected toolpath. And as you can see, that's turned out how we wanted that. So again, let's go back to the 2D view. So I'm just going to click F2 on the keyboard and just deselect those vectors that we've got selected. The next toolpath we're going to be doing is we're going to be drilling through the whole material for these center holes here. So let's just select this hole and then hold Shift on the keyboard and select the second one. We can then close the Preview Toolpath form and then go straight into the Pocketing Toolpath. For this, we're going to be starting from the top of the material, and we're going to be going the full depth and a little bit more, just to ensure that we cut straight through the whole material block that we've got. So for this, we're going to specify 0.276 inches. Now, when doing this type of cut, when we go past the actual depth of the material, we need to make sure that we are using a sacrifice sheet, something that isn't going to be the machine bed, so it doesn't actually damage the machine. So once we're happy that we've done that, let's go ahead and then select our tool. So again, we could use a 1/4 inch, but it's going to be too large for these holes. So this time we're going to go into the tool database again, and we're going to select an 1/8 inch tool. Now if you don't have one of those, just simply select a 1/4 inch and press copy, and then just change the details. So you'll need to change the name here and the diameter, and preferably the cutting parameters. And once we've done that, we can just simply click OK. Again, I'm going to be editing those, so just select the edit box there, and let's just go over the details that we do have. So I'm happy with the pass depth and the step over that we've got, and so I'm just going to change these to 3200 for the spindle speed, so just change that to that, and I'm going to have a feed rate of 4 inches a minute and a plunge rate of 1 inch per minute. Once we've got those, just simply press OK. For doing holes, it makes more sense to do an offset strategy, so just make sure we've got this option selected here, and again I'm going to be ramping into those holes, so I'm going to use a ramp of 1/2 inch. Just going to call this pocket holes, and then I'm going to click calculate to preview these. Now straight away we're going to get an error message come up warning us that we're going to be cutting deeper than the actual material thickness, and to ensure that we do have a sacrificial layer under the material so that this doesn't then damage the machine bed. So once we're happy with that and we know that we do have a sacrificial layer, we can then press OK to proceed, and then this will bring us straight back to the Preview Toolpath form, and we can then go ahead and preview the toolpath. So that's done exactly what I wanted, so we can go ahead now and go to Toolpath spokes. So let's go to the 2D view and just deselect those vectors, and this time we want to be selecting all these vectors here. So we could do this a number of ways. We could drag a box over them and then just deselect these in the middle, but I'm just going to go around and select all these individually. So I'm just going to hold Shift and go ahead and select all these vectors, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pocketing these to a distance of 0.2 of an inch. So let's just select them all, and when we've done that, just close the Preview Toolpath form, come over to the toolpath operations and select to pocket the toolpath. So let's work this out. So we want to do a maximum depth of 0.2 of an inch, but we've already, if you remember, we've already done a pocket. So if we go to the 3D view, we've already done a pocket of here, and we did it to 0.08 of an inch. So if we just, and we can see this by, if we check down here on the bottom right of the software, it actually shows you what the actual distance is in the material. So at the moment you can see that this is the top of the block, so that's 0, 0. And then we go down, and we've then cut, so that profile that we did to 0.16, as you can see, and then go back to 0, and then we're going to be going down 0.4, and for the actual area where we're going to be doing the spokes, you'll see that we're going down 0.08. So that's the actual start depth where we actually want to start from. So if we just select the start depth there and just specify that, and we want to do a maximum cut depth of 0.2. So we could actually just use the functions in the software to actually just work that out for us, or obviously we can work it out in our head, as it is quite easy, but I'm just going to demonstrate this to you anyway. So you just type in 0.2 minus 0.08, and all you need to do then is just hit the equals key on the keyboard, and it will then work that out for you. So you probably already knew that was 0.12, but I was just wanting to demonstrate that to you. So next we can go ahead and then select the tool that we want to use. So again, as we've done a pocket with the 1/8 inch end mill, we should only just be able to select the edit button and just check the parameters that we've set. I can see that these are all fine, so I'm just going to accept those changes. For the pocket strategy, I'm going to keep that as the offset, and again, just going to ramp in there for 1/2 an inch, so just make sure you just specify that and check the option. And we can just call this pocket spokes, and we can then calculate that toolpath, and we can then preview it to ensure it's turned out exactly how we wanted it, and it has also machined down to the correct depth. So let's just select to preview the selected toolpath, and again we can use this little feature down here to actually make sure that it has cut to 0.02. So as you can see from the Z option, you can see that it has cut down minus 0.2 from the top of the block. So I'm happy with that. So we can go ahead now and create our final toolpath, that being the profile cutout pass. So again, let's go to the 2D view and just deselect everything and just select the outer vector, and we can then close the preview toolpath form and go straight to the profile toolpath option. So we want to be starting from the top of the material, so just ensure that the start depth is 0, 0. And we want to cut down through the whole of the material, but we want to go that little bit further like we did when we did the pocketing of the holes. So again, just specify 0.276. Now for the tool, we could use a 1/4 inch end mill, or we could use an 1/8 inch end mill. Now we might want to use the 1/8 inch end mill for the purposes of less tool changes in the job. So we could then run all the 1/4 inch end mill jobs first, so like the pocketing and the profiling around the rim, and then we could then do the rest of the job, like doing the holes that we created, and then do the final cutout pass with the 18th tool. And we could actually then combine those tool paths so that they're all into one, and making sure that the profiling ones last. So I'm just going to change this actually to an 1/8 inch end mill and select OK. And again, I'm just going to edit these just to make sure that these are safe values for free machining aluminum. So I'm just going to specify the 3200 RPM for the spindle speed, and I'm going to specify a feed rate of 4 inches and a plunge rate of 1 inch, and just press OK. I am going to make sure that we are machining outside of the vector we've got selected. And again, I do want to ramp in 1/2 an inch just to ensure we don't go into the full plunge distance. And I'm not going to add tabs to this, as I'm going to imagine that we've got another way of securing the part down. So I'm just going to go ahead and just give this a name of profile cutout, and I'm just going to go ahead and click calculate for this. Again, it's going to warn me that we're going to be cutting through past the material thickness and down possibly into the machine bed. But we've got a sacrificial layer there, so we're going to be using that. So I'm just going to click OK for this, and then we can just preview our toolpath. So as you can see, that's cut out our wheel, and we can then swivel this around just to make sure that it's turned out exactly how we wanted it. Now, another neat feature about using the preview toolpath form, and as long as we don't have any tabs connecting these two parts of the material block together, we can actually delete waste material, or what would be the leftover material from cutting this out. And we can do this simply by just double clicking on the excess material. So if you just double click, that will then disappear. So we're just left with our wheel. And what we could do now is we can actually just save a preview image, and we could then send that to the customer for approval. And once then we've been given the go-ahead, we can then simply just go ahead and save out all these toolpaths. So save toolpaths icon, and then we can go ahead and select all the ones that are the 1/4 inch. So these three. And we can then output all these toolpaths to one file. So it doesn't really matter which order, I don't think we do these. So we could then just select our post processor and then just save that out. And then for the final one, we could then go ahead and then select to pocket the holes and then the spokes, and then finally do the pocket cutout and then save that all together. So it'll run these in sequential order. So it would do the pocket holes first, and then it would go ahead and do the spokes, and then it would go ahead and then do the cutout. So by choosing the 1/8 inch end mill for the cutout pass, we've actually saved on a tool change. So I'm going to click close on this, and what we can do now is, if we're happy with everything that we've done, we can simply go ahead and then save our work, so that if we needed to come back to this later to edit any toolpaths for any reason, we can go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to click Save As, and I'm just going to call this Loco Wheel, and I'm going to just add an underscore and Toolpaths to the end of that, and then click Save. And that now brings us to the end of this tutorial, so thank you for watching.